The alarm rang at 4:45 a.m. The cheap, buzzing digital sound broke through the silence of the dimly lit apartment like a hammer cracking glass. Clara Jensen groaned, her arm fumbling to silence it before the twins stirred. The ceiling above her was flaking. The corners still leaked when it rained, despite the landlord's promises. She lay still for a moment, listening to the breathing of her daughters in the next room. Light, even, safe. One more day, she whispered to herself. Then she pulled the covers back and swung her legs over the edge of the mattress, wincing as her bare feet touched the cold linoleum. The morning routine was muscle memory now. Boil water. Toast what little bread was left. Packed school bags were the only two lunch boxes they had, plastic ones with fading pictures of cartoon unicorns. There was just enough peanut butter for sandwiches. No fruit, no juice boxes. She added 2 old granola bars and hoped the girls wouldn't notice. Clara poured the last of the coffee grounds into the filter and pressed the brew button, willing the machine to work just one more time. Her mind wandered, as it always did now, to Caleb. 2 years gone. A rainy night. A phone call. A silence on the line, so thick she could still hear it. He had walked out that door with a guitar strapped across his back, kissed her cheek, said he'd be home by 10. He never was. The accident took more than her husband. It had taken her direction, her balance, her belief that the future could be better. And now, she was close to losing the last thing she had. The girl's home. Mommy? Lily's voice came softly from the hallway. Clara turned, forcing a smile. Hey, baby, you're up early. Lily was holding her stuffed bear upside down by the leg, her curly hair a nest of sleep and dreams. Behind her, June peeked around the corner, rubbing her eyes. Can we have pancakes? June asked hopefully. Clara crouched, pulling them both into her arms. Not today, sweethearts. But I made peanut butter sandwiches for your lunch. And maybe we can make pancakes this weekend, okay? They nodded in unison, always trusting, always believing. By 7:15 a.m., they were dressed in mismatched socks and school uniforms with slightly frayed hems. Clara kissed their cheeks and sent them down the hallway toward the Petersons' apartment. Mrs. Peterson, a retired nurse with kind eyes and a generous heart, had agreed to watch the girls before and after school while Clara worked the early shift. You're a saint, Clara whispered as she handed over the backpacks. Your mother, Mrs. Peterson replied. You don't need sainthood. You just need a break. The break didn't come at 8 a.m. when Clara clocked in at Vail Financial Tower, a shimmering 52-floor testament to capitalism that stood like a mirror above the city. She didn't work for the company. Not really. She worked for the contractor that cleaned its restrooms, vacuumed its corridors, scrubbed its fingerprints off glass walls before the real people arrived. Clara changed in the supply closet, pulling on the blue-gray uniform that never quite fit. She tied her hair back and started at the top, floor 48. By floor 36, her legs ached. By floor 28, she had bled through the heel of her right shoe. By floor 12, she was counting hours until she could see the girls again. Hey, Jensen. Clara paused at the sound of her supervisor's voice echoing off the marble lobby walls. The man approaching her was short, balding, and perpetually irritated. His name was Dwight, and he carried a clipboard like it was a weapon. Can you clean the executive lounge on 50? One of the day crew called out. I'm almost done with this floor, and then... Now. No apology. No understanding. Clara sighed and turned for the elevator. The executive lounge on the 50th floor was a world apart from the rest of the building. Leather chairs, crystal carafes, a view that stretched for miles. It didn't smell like bleach or sweat. It smelled like wealth. She started with the counters, wiping down the granite with practiced hands. The coffee machine blinked with buttons she didn't understand. She had never dared press them. The double doors behind her opened. She turned, and her breath caught. Nicholas Vale, the man himself. He stepped into the lounge like he owned gravity. Perfectly tailored charcoal suit, silver cufflinks, a wristwatch that cost more than her yearly rent, salt and pepper hair slicked back with clinical precision, eyes like glaciers. She had seen him on the news, on the building directory, once from the elevator when the doors opened accidentally on 52. She had never been this close. He paused, looked at her, looked past her. "Miss?" His voice was velvet and steel. Clara scrambled upright. "Yes, sir. Sorry. I'll be done in just a moment." He walked to the bar area, poured something into a glass, and then turned toward the window. "What's your name?" Clara froze. Clara Jensen." He said nothing, just nodded once and stared out the window. She finished quickly, heart hammering, and exited without another word. That night, Clara barely made the last bus. The girls were asleep when she got home. She sat on the couch, shoes off, staring at the eviction notice on the kitchen table. She had 9 days left. She had no savings, no options, and tomorrow she had to do it all again. 2 floors above, Nicholas Vale stood in his glass office, swirling a glass of scotch in his hand. Samantha Lee, his assistant, waited near the desk with a file in her hands. "Go on," he said quietly. "We're reducing head count across third-party contractors. Cleaning, security, temp reception, everything. And Jensen, Clara, mother of twins, been with the cleaning team almost a year. No disciplinary marks. But," Samantha hesitated, "she's among those to be cut next week." Nicholas said nothing. "She was cleaning the executive lounge today." "I know." More silence. "Any objection, sir?" Nicholas set the glass down. His voice was unreadable. "No. Proceed." But he didn't move as she left the room. He stood there, watching the city long after the lights began to flicker off. And for reasons he couldn't articulate yet, he didn't drink the scotch. Saturday morning. Clara had the day off, but the weight in her chest was heavier than usual. The girls were playing with crayons on the living room floor. Music drifted from the old radio. Something soft. Something Caleb might have played on his guitar. There was a knock. Not the rapid knock of Mrs. Peterson. Not the playful knock of the mailman. 3 firm, deliberate knocks. Clara opened the door and felt her knees weaken. Nicholas Vale stood there. No suit jacket. No assistant. Just a man himself, holding a thin folder in one hand. "May I come in?" he asked. Clara blinked. "Why would you?" "I think we need to talk." Clara stood frozen in the doorway. Nicholas Vale, the man who owned the building she cleaned, the man whose signature was printed on her impending unemployment, the man who once turned his back on a son she loved. She hadn't known that last part yet, but she would. He looked strangely out of place against the peeling pane of her apartment door. Still powerful, still cold, but also hesitant. "Can I come in?" he asked again, his voice carefully neutral. Clara hesitated. "Why?" He looked past her shoulder. "Because if I'm right about what I think, then we have more to talk about than either of us expected." She narrowed her eyes. "I'm not sure I want to hear it. I understand, but it's important." She glanced over her shoulder. The girls were still playing, singing softly to each other in their room. She stepped aside, warily. Nicholas entered, carefully, like he might break something by accident. The apartment was small, modest, clean despite the chipped walls and tired furniture. A faint scent of laundry detergent and children's crayons lingered in the air. It smelled like effort. Clara folded her arms, standing between him and the rest of the apartment. "If this is about cutting my position, you didn't have to show up in person." He looked at her, expression unreadable. "No, it's not about that. Not exactly." "Then what?" she challenged. Nicholas reached into the folder and handed her a piece of paper. It was her employment file. "My assistant brought your name to my attention yesterday," he said. You were on the termination list. I reviewed it. Clara scanned it with a bitter smirk. Nice of you to take the time. His voice lowered. Then I saw your personnel file, and your emergency contact, and the name of your late husband. Clara's hand stiffened around the paper. Caleb Jensen Vale, he said softly. The world tilted. Her breath caught. I didn't know he was married, Nicholas added. I didn't even know he had children. Clara looked up slowly, her voice sharp as glass. Of course you didn't. There was no mistaking it now. Those eyes, steel blue and burdened, belonged to Caleb too. The same eyes her daughters had. The same eyes she had tried to forget when they stared back at her from baby cribs. And now from across the dinner table. She began, choking on the words. Nicholas nodded. I'm his father. Clara stepped back like she'd been slapped. Nicholas didn't move. I didn't come here to make excuses, he said. Good, she snapped. Because there aren't any. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then a small voice echoed from the hallway. Mommy? Clara turned. Lily stood in her pajamas, holding a worn book to her chest. I heard voices, she said sleepily. Who's that? Before Clara could answer, June appeared behind her, thumb in her mouth, shy eyes peeking around her sister. Nicholas looked at them and went absolutely still. Clara noticed it. His hand twitched. The folder in his grasp creased slightly. Those girls, so small, so alive, were reflections of the son he'd buried 2 years ago. And they looked exactly like him. Clara's voice was tight. Girls, this is Mr. Vale. He's someone from Mommy's old job. Nicholas knelt slightly, not quite crouching, not quite standing. Hello. Lily blinked. You look like the picture in Mommy's drawer. Clara froze. Nicholas glanced up. Picture? Clara's face flushed. Old family photos. Caleb's music gigs. He looked down again at the twins. Do you play music? June asked softly. Nicholas shook his head. No, but your dad did. Did you know him? Lily's voice was small. Clara quickly intervened. Okay, girls, why don't you go play for a few more minutes? But now, please. They obeyed reluctantly, glancing at Nicholas one last time before retreating. Clara turned back to him, her arms crossed like armor. Nicholas spoke quietly. You didn't tell me. You didn't deserve to know. He didn't flinch. Maybe not. There was a beat of silence. He left your name off everything, she added, because he didn't want your money. He didn't want your legacy. He just wanted peace. Nicholas nodded slowly. I believe that. You didn't come to the funeral. I didn't know he was dead. That finally cracked her anger, just slightly. 2 years, she whispered. 2 years. I've raised him alone. Scrubbed toilets in your tower just to keep the lights on. I didn't know, he repeated. And now you do. So what? You think you can walk in here and what? Apologize? He met her gaze. No, I don't expect forgiveness. Good, she said coldly, because you're not getting it. Nicholas exhaled. Then let me offer something else. He placed another sheet of paper on the table. A job offer. Full-time. Benefits. Higher pay. Administrative support role, not cleaning. Clara stared at it. This isn't pity, he said quickly. You're qualified. My team needs someone. I can open that door. Clara laughed bitterly. You think you can fix this with a job? No, I don't think I can fix anything. I think I can try to do one right thing. She stared at the offer for a long time. You expect me to work for the man who disowned the love of my life? No, Nicholas said. I'm asking you to work for yourself. And your daughters. She hated that it made sense. Hated that it was exactly what she needed. Let me think about it, she muttered. He nodded. Of course. He moved toward the door, then paused. They have his eyes, he said quietly. Clara didn't respond. And his courage. She said nothing. He opened the door, but before he stepped out, she spoke. If you hurt them, if you confuse them or break their hearts, I will never forgive you. Nicholas turned. His expression was unreadable. But in his voice, there was something raw. I already know what it's like to lose a child. I don't plan to lose grandchildren, too. Monday morning arrived earlier than Clara wanted and later than she needed. The alarm had gone off at 5:30, but she'd been awake since 4 o'clock, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with Nicholas Vale over and over like a film reel. She couldn't stop. He was offering her a job, a better one, not in cleaning, not in shadows, but at a desk, with benefits, with stability. She didn't trust him. She didn't trust his motives, but she trusted the paper due in 3 weeks, the eviction notice. She trusted the ache in her lower back from 3 straight 12-hour shifts, and she trusted that Lily and June needed more than peanut butter and a mattress on the floor. So she said yes. The lobby of Vale Financial Tower looked different when she wasn't wearing a janitor uniform, or maybe it was just at this time she was walking toward the elevator like she belonged there. Miss Clara Jensen? The receptionist asked. Yes. Welcome to Vale Admin. Mr. Monroe is expecting you. Clara followed the directions to the 14th floor where David Monroe, a clean-cut man in his mid-40s with kind eyes, greeted her with a smile. New territory? He asked, offering his hand. Very. We all start somewhere. He didn't say anything about her previous role. He didn't offer pity. Just a seat, a manual, and a schedule. Clara liked him instantly. By noon, she'd learned the basics of internal communication systems, file routing, and HR policy codes. Her head spun, but not in a bad way, more like a rush of oxygen to a system starved for it. Her desk was modest, tucked between the printer room and the copy bins, but it had a chair that didn't squeak, a working keyboard, and a view of the break room coffee pot. At 12:45, as she sipped her microwave soup and reviewed a spreadsheet, someone approached quietly. Nicholas. He didn't speak right away. Then, how was your first morning? Clara raised an eyebrow. You checking on me? No, I just happened to be passing through. She smirked. Right, on the floor below your office. Nicholas's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. David says you're catching on quickly. Clara set her spoon down. If this is going to be a regular thing, us having little midday chats, you might want to warn HR. Nicholas hesitated. I'm not here to monitor you, Clara. I'm trying to understand. She leaned back. Understand what? What Caleb saw in all of this. In life outside the tower. Outside my name. Clara stared at him. And for the first time, she didn't see a billionaire. She saw a man who'd lost a son, just like she'd lost a husband. Caleb saw music in everything, she said finally. He didn't need an empire. He needed people. Moments. Honesty. Nicholas nodded once. I'm trying. Try quieter, she murmured, and returned to her soup. That Friday afternoon, Clara picked up Lily and June from Mrs. Peterson's place as usual. They were in matching purple raincoats, jumping through puddles like tiny whirlwinds. Guess what? June shouted as she splashed toward her. What? We made cupcakes at school, and I didn't drop mine this time. Lily added, and guess what else? Clara laughed. What else? We drew pictures of our family. I drew Daddy and you, and me, and June and Grandpa. Clara stopped walking. Grandpa? She asked carefully. Lily beamed. Yeah, Mr. Vale. He looks like Daddy, right? June nodded solemnly. And he listens when we talk, like Daddy used to. Clara's throat tightened. She had only allowed 2 short visits in the past month. Supervised, polite, brief. But somehow, the girls had already begun to attach meaning. To fill the hole Caleb left with someone who bore his eyes. She wasn't sure whether to be angry or afraid or grateful. Maybe all three. That weekend, Nicholas requested to take the girls to the botanical gardens. Clara agreed, with rules. She packed snacks. She gave a list of emergency numbers. She told him to wear sunscreen even though it was cloudy. And when he arrived, she stared him down so hard he actually laughed. "You trust me with a division of your company," she said, "but I still don't trust you with my daughters." Nicholas nodded. "That's fair." The photos came in later that afternoon. First, Lily on a bridge, pointing at koi fish. Second, June holding a flower nearly as big as her face. Third, Nicholas crouched between them, his arms unsure but present, his face softened by the blur of motion and wind. She stared at them longer than she meant to. Then, without thinking, she texted back, "Thanks. They had fun." The reply came 3 minutes later. "So did I." Monday morning brought unexpected news. David called Clara into his office. "You've been assigned to coordinate the West Side Housing Project reports." Clara blinked. "That's a senior file. Your data entries last week caught some inconsistencies. Nicholas personally requested you review the documentation for oversight." Clara exhaled. "Of course he did." David smiled. "You're good at this." She swallowed. I have a reason to be." That night, after Lily and June were asleep, Clara sat on the couch with a folder of reports in her lap and a photo of Caleb on the coffee table. "He's trying, love," she whispered to the air. "God help me. I think he's really trying." She thought of Nicholas coloring with the girls, helping June climb a rock, laughing at Lily's knock-knock jokes. She thought of how Caleb would have smirked at all of it, would have called it poetic justice. She didn't know what to call it yet, but it felt like something beginning. The late afternoon sun streamed through the living room window, casting golden slants across the carpet. Clara sat cross-legged on the floor, folding laundry, while the girls built a fort out of pillows and blankets. "Do you think Grandpa will come again this weekend?" Lily asked, poking her head out of the fort. Clara paused, folding a tiny T-shirt. "He might," she said carefully. "He said he was going to bring a telescope." June added, "so we can see the stars like Daddy showed us." Clara's chest tightened. Caleb used to take them to the rooftop of their old apartment building. He'd hum lullabies while pointing out constellations. They'd been too young to remember much of it, but somehow they still did. That evening, as Clara reviewed the last section of her housing report, her phone buzzed. Nicholas Vale. The name still looked strange flashing on her screen. She picked up. "Hi." "Good evening," Nicholas replied. "Sorry to call late. I just wanted to ask something." Clara closed her laptop. "What is it?" "I was thinking, if the girls are free this weekend, I'd like to show them the observatory upstate. There's a meteor shower." Clara was silent for a moment. Then, "Why?" Nicholas paused. "Because Caleb loves stars, and I never watched a single one with him. That made her breath catch. I thought maybe," he added, "I could start now with them." By Saturday afternoon, they were driving up Route 87 in Nicholas's black SUV. The back seat was filled with giggles, snack wrappers, and whispered games. Nicholas drove in silence for most of it, but not because he didn't want to speak. He just didn't want to break it. That sound, their laughter, it felt like the ghost of something he'd once had but never cherished. The observatory was perched on a quiet hilltop, surrounded by pines and a hush of falling dusk. Lily and June darted between the telescopes and benches, their scarves flapping behind them like capes. Clara stood beside Nicholas, watching them. "They're fearless," he said softly. "Like their father," Clara replied. Nicholas exhaled. He was brave, more than I ever gave him credit for. Clara looked at him. "You're starting to sound like someone who regrets things." "I regret everything." The words came out so plainly, so unguarded, that it startled even him. "I pushed him away because he wouldn't become me. But now, All I want is a piece of who he was. Clara said nothing. The wind picked up, scattering leaves at their feet. I didn't expect this, Nicholas admitted. What? The ache, the clarity, the second chances I never asked for. Clara looked away. Neither did I. That night, as the sky darkened into velvet, the stars came out like pinholes in a vast canvas. Lily gasped, "There's so many." June clapped, "Can we find Daddy's star?" Nicholas knelt beside them. "Which one do you think is his?" Lily pointed. "That one, the really bright one." Nicholas swallowed hard. "It fits," he whispered. Then June looked up at him. "Do you miss Daddy?" The question knocked the breath from him. He stared into her eyes, Caleb's eyes, and he whispered, "Every day." Clara watched from a bench, arms wrapped around herself, her heart an unstable mix of sorrow and strange peace. She had never imagined this moment. Her daughters, curled up against a man who once denied their father's life. And yet, here he was, not trying to replace Caleb, not pretending to be something he wasn't, just showing up. On the way back, both girls fell asleep in the back seat, heads resting on each other. Nicholas drove more slowly than usual, glancing at them in the mirror. Clara broke the silence. "You're different than I expected." "I'm different than I expected," he said, almost smiling. She hesitated. "What are you planning with them?" He looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean long term. They're starting to love you. I need to know if you're going to vanish when the guilt fades." Nicholas didn't answer right away. Then, finally, "I'm not going anywhere." Sunday afternoon, he asked if he could visit again. Clara agreed, but she had a condition. "You said you wanted a piece of Caleb," she told him. "Come see where he lived. Before all this." The next morning, Nicholas found himself standing in front of a tiny one-bedroom walk-up, peeling paint, broken steps. He carried his guitar up 3 flights of stairs every night, Clara said, leading him inside. Even when he was sick, even after we knew the cancer might return. Nicholas was silent. She pointed to the corner. That's where he wrote his last song. Sitting on the floor. Lily was asleep on his lap. Nicholas stepped into the room, overwhelmed by the intimacy of it all. "He never wanted your empire," Clara said softly. "He just wanted your presence." Nicholas touched the windowsill, fingers trembling. "I gave him nothing." "You gave him pain," Clara said. Then more quietly, "But now you have a chance to give something to them." He looked back at her. "I want to." "Then start with this," Clara said. She opened a worn case and handed it to him. Inside was Caleb's old acoustic guitar. Scratched, weathered, beautiful. Nicholas touched the strings. "He wanted them to learn," Clara whispered. "But he died before he could teach them." Nicholas stared down at the instrument like it was made of glass. "I can't play." "You can learn." She looked at him squarely. "Or you can help them learn." That night, Clara tucked the girls into bed. Nicholas lingered by the door, watching as June whispered a sleepy, "Good night, Grandpa." Something inside him shattered and healed at the same time. Later, as he drove home, Nicholas played Caleb's last recorded song in his car. He had never listened before, but now he did, all the way through. And when it ended, he played it again. Nicholas Vale sat at the head of a long mahogany table in the executive boardroom of Vale Financial Tower, his reflection distorted in the glossy surface. The agenda for today's meeting was printed on pristine white paper in front of him. He hadn't read it. All he could see was Lily's face last night, pressed against his shoulder as she drifted to sleep with her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. She had whispered, "Don't go yet, Grandpa." And for the first time in over 30 years, Nicholas had found himself wishing he didn't have to go back to work at all. "Item 3, said Franklin Tate, the company's CFO, clearing his throat. "Family trusts." We've been receiving inquiries about a shift in asset allocations, especially after rumors of personal restructuring. Nicholas looked up sharply. Rumors? Tate hesitated. Well, sir, there's talk that you're re-engaging with certain family connections. Nicholas's voice dropped. Be specific. Tate folded his hands. You've been seen in public, sir. With children. With a woman. The room tensed. Nicholas didn't move. You're referring to Clara Jensen. And her daughters. The public associates them with you now, another board member said. It's become noticeable. Nicholas's jaw tightened. They are my granddaughters. The air seemed to vanish from the room. One executive blinked. Another sat back slowly. No one spoke. Nicholas continued, his voice low but firm. Caleb had children. I wasn't aware. Now I am. That changes everything. You're thinking of bringing them in? Tate asked, stunned. Into the family trust? Into public view? I'm not thinking, Nicholas replied. I already have. Meanwhile, Clara sat across from David Monroe in the administrative office, reviewing numbers from a recent housing initiative. You're distracted, David said gently. Clara gave a tired smile. I had a strange weekend. Strange good or strange bad? Clara leaned back. Nicholas took the girls to the observatory. They called it the best night ever. That's sweet. She nodded slowly. It is, but it's also confusing. David closed the file. You're worried? I'm terrified, she confessed, because they're starting to love him. David was quiet for a long moment. You know what's scarier than loving someone? He asked. Wishing you had. That evening, Clara arrived at the apartment to find Nicholas waiting outside her door. He was holding a thin envelope. I need to talk to you. She stepped aside, letting him in. What is it? Nicholas sat stiffly on the edge of the couch. I made it public today, he said, that the girls are part of my family, that Caleb had children, that you were his wife. Clara's mouth fell slightly open. You announced it? To the board, to my trustees. The press will know soon. Clara's heart pounded. Why would you do that without telling me? Nicholas looked at her, and for the first time in days, he looked tired. Not just physically, so tired. Because hiding them felt like the same mistake I made with Caleb. And I won't do it again. Clara stood, pacing. You don't understand the consequences. There's more. He handed her the envelope. She opened it and stared. Inside was a handwritten letter. Torn, faded, but unmistakably Caleb's handwriting. Where did you find this? I didn't, Nicholas said. The estate attorney did. In a sealed music case. One I never opened. Clara read the first lines aloud. Dad, if you're reading this, it means I'm ready. Ready to start again. I'm tired of being angry. I want you to know your granddaughters. I want them to have a grandfather. If you're willing to try... Her voice cracked. Nicholas whispered, He tried to forgive me. He did, Clara whispered back. He always hoped you'd come back. Nicholas looked away. And I never did. Tears rimmed Clara's eyes, but she wiped them away roughly. You still have a chance to be what he wanted you to be. Nicholas looked at her. Will you let me? That weekend, Nicholas took the girls to his private residence for the first time. A large, lakefront property with more glass than brick, more space than the girls had ever seen. This is like a castle. Lily squealed. Do you have a pool? June asked, eyes wide. 2, Nicholas replied, almost sheepishly. But what caught Clara's attention was not the wealth. It was the way Nicholas followed the girls with watchful care, the way he knelt to help tie June's shoe, the way he laughed when Lily made him wear a paper crown. After dinner, the girls were asleep in a guest room with matching beds and a wall of picture books. Clara found Nicholas on the balcony, staring out at the lake. She would have loved this, Clara said softly. Nicholas nodded. So would he. A long silence passed. Then he turned to her. I want to set up an education trust for them. Clara didn't answer. I want to help with your rent. Your job, whatever it takes. Clara's voice hardened. No, that's not what they need. Nicholas looked surprised. It's not charity. It's not about charity. It's about showing up consistently, without a checkbook. Nicholas nodded slowly. I can do that, he said quietly. Then do it, Clara replied. Not as a CEO, not as a Vale, but as a grandfather. The next morning, the tabloids exploded. Secret heirs of Nicholas Vale, twin daughters of musician Caleb Vale revealed. Clara stared at her phone in disbelief. Paparazzi. Noise. Whispers from co-workers. Nicholas called. I'm handling it. But the truth was he couldn't. And Clara knew things were about to get complicated. Again. Monday morning was chaos. Clara hadn't slept. Not really. Her phone had buzzed through the night. Calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Notifications from social media she hadn't even posted. Messages from old classmates she barely remembered. The headlines were everywhere. Vale heiresses revealed. The twins you've never seen. From janitor to CEO's family. The mysterious woman in Nicholas Vale's life. Caleb Vale's secret legacy. Meet the twins as father denied. The tabloid had done what tabloids do. Taken fragment of truth, stitched them with speculation, and wrapped them in scandal. At school drop-off, mothers stared. Some whispered. One even smiled too sweetly and asked, So, what's it like being the next Mrs. Vale? Clara almost dropped her coffee. At work, it wasn't better. In the elevator, two junior analysts paused mid-conversation. When she stepped in, she heard the word granddaughters just as the doors closed. David Monroe pulled her into his office before she'd even reached her desk. I'm sorry, he said. HR is getting questions. The board's buzzing. Clara stood stiffly. I didn't release anything. I know, but it's out, and people talk. She braced herself. Are you letting me go? David shook his head. No, not unless you want out. Clara blinked. I don't. Good, he said, because you're good at this. But there will be noise, judgment, pressure. Clara smiled thinly. That's Tuesday for a single mom. Upstairs, Nicholas was under siege. The boardroom had turned cold. Franklin Tate stood near the windows, arms crossed. You've exposed the company to unnecessary liability, media intrusion, disruption. Nicholas sat at the head of the table, calm but unyielding. What's the liability in acknowledging my own granddaughters? They're minors with no legal claim to the estate. And now every journalist in the city thinks they're next in line to Vale Financial. They're children, Nicholas said, not chess pieces. Your reputation is the company's reputation. Nicholas met Franklin's gaze. Then let the company learn what it means to have a heart. The room went silent. One woman near the end of the table cleared her throat. Sir, with all due respect, this feels personal. It is, Nicholas said, that evening. He stood at Clara's door with a single red folder in hand. She opened the door with tired eyes. I need to explain, he said. She didn't say anything, just stepped aside. The girls were drawing at the table, oblivious to the storm beyond their walls. Nicholas sat on the worn couch and opened the folder. Inside, notarized trust documents, educational funds, guardianship considerations. Clara stared. You're making this official? I already did. She shook her head. You didn't ask me. I didn't think I needed to. Clara's eyes flared. They're my children. They're my family, too. There was the crack in everything. Nicholas continued, quieter. The media attention, I didn't want it either. But I won't deny them. I won't hide them like I did with Caleb. You're not hiding them, she said. You're putting them on display. He closed the folder. I thought you'd be glad. I'm scared, she whispered. He looked up. Clara's voice trembled. They're not ready for that world. And neither am I. Nicholas nodded slowly. Then I'll protect them. Clara crossed her arms. And what if you can't? The next morning, the storm intensified. Paparazzi camped outside the school. The school principal called Clara in. We're concerned about the girl's safety. Clara sat on the edge of a plastic chair, fighting to keep her voice steady. They're 6. They just want to color and eat fruit snacks. Please don't make this worse. We're not asking them to leave. Just consider remote learning for a few weeks. Clara left in tears. Later that night, Nicholas met her at the park, just after sunset. The girls were on the swings, laughing, unaware of the adult world spinning off axis. I thought wealth could protect them, Nicholas admitted. But I forgot what wealth attracts. Clara sat beside him. I don't need protection. I need boundaries. He looked at her. I'll do whatever you ask. Clara turned. Then let's set some rules. He nodded. Say the word. Together, they drafted what Clara called the rules of presence. No press. Ever. No financial announcements without discussion. Nicholas is grandpa. Not Vale. Not boss. Not CO. The girls' lives come first. Always. Caleb is never erased. Only honored. When she finished reading them aloud, Nicholas looked at her, eyes unreadable. Deal, he said softly. Then, he would have been proud of you. Clara swallowed the lump in her throat. He'd be even prouder of them. Back at the apartment, Clara watched Nicholas kneel by the girls. June was holding a glitter pen. Can you sign my painting like a real artist? Nicholas smiled. I'm not an artist. Lily held up a crayon. You are now. He took the pen, scrawled Nicholas to Grandpa under a messy drawing of stars and bunnies, and handed it back. And as the girls giggled, Clara realized this was a moment, not the headlines, not the inheritance. This, crayons and peace. But the quiet didn't last. The following Friday, Clara received a manila envelope on her desk. No return address. Inside was a photo, a younger Caleb, on stage, beside another woman. She flipped the photo. On the back, in neat cursive, did he ever tell you about her? Clara froze. A second photo. This time, Caleb holding a baby. Not Lily. Not June. Her hands trembled. She turned the photo over. One word. Before. The envelope sat on Clara's kitchen table, like a live wire. She hadn't told Nicholas. Not yet. Not until she could breathe. Not until she could make sense of what she saw. The first photo, Caleb younger, vibrant, laughing with a woman Clara didn't recognize. Arm around her waist. Mic in hand. The setting looked like a bar stage. Intimate. Warm. The second, Caleb cradling a newborn. No date. No caption. No answers. Clara stared at the handwriting on the back again. Before her? Before Lily and June? Before the version of Caleb she thought she knew? That night, she barely slept. Her dreams were messy, voices without faces, Caleb's laugh echoing through empty rooms, a baby crying from a place she couldn't reach. By morning, she felt hollow. Nicholas called around 8 a.m. Can I stop by before the weekend starts? Clara hesitated. Maybe later. I'm catching up on some things. He paused. Is everything okay? I'm fine. But they both knew she wasn't. Later that day, she went to David Monroe's office. She closed the door behind her. Her hands trembled as she set the envelope on his desk. I need help, she said. David opened it. Silence stretched between them as he examined the photos. He looked up slowly. Do you think it's real? I don't know. Do you want it to be? Clara's voice broke. I don't know that either. That evening, she picked the girls up from school. June was skipping. Lily was humming. Clara forced a smile, but her mind stayed elsewhere. That night, after bedtime stories and warm milk, she stepped out onto the balcony. She dialed Nicholas. He answered on the second ring. "Clara, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." "I will." She told him about the photos. The woman, the child, the word before. There was a long pause. Nicholas exhaled. "I know who she is." Clara's heart sank. "So it's real?" "Her name was Danielle. Caleb dated her about a year before he met you. They were serious. She left town abruptly. No one knew why. And the baby? I don't know." He sounded raw, uneven. "I hadn't seen or heard from her in years," Nicholas said. "And Caleb never mentioned a child. But that doesn't mean he didn't know." Clara closed her eyes. "So you think it's possible?" Nicholas didn't speak, and that silence was her answer. The next morning, Nicholas showed up at her apartment with a file. "She resurfaced," he said simply, "last year for a paternity claim." Clara blinked. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because she withdrew it. No legal action. No follow-up. Caleb was already gone." He handed her the document. Danielle Summers. Child, male. First name redacted. Date of birth. For months before Clara met Caleb. Clara sat down slowly. "If this is true, they have a brother," Nicholas finished. Over the next week, everything changed. Clara felt unmoored. She found herself watching Lily and June more closely, wondering if they'd ask, if they'd feel it, sense it. She didn't know how to tell them. Worse, she didn't know if she wanted to. David asked gently one day, "Have you considered reaching out to Mother?" "I wouldn't know where to begin." He shrugged. "Maybe start with the truth." That Sunday afternoon, Clara called the number listed on the old legal paperwork. A woman answered, calm, distant. "Danielle?" "Yes." "This is Clara Jensen, Caleb's wife." A silence. "I know who you are," Danielle said. "Why did you send a photo?" "I didn't." Clara froze. "What?" "I haven't spoken about Caleb in years." "Then who?" "I don't know," Danielle said softly. "But if you have questions, maybe it's time we talk." They met at a quiet diner off the interstate. Danielle wore no makeup. Her hair was tied back. Her eyes were tired like Clara's. They didn't hug. They didn't cry. They just sat. Clara went first. "Is he Caleb's?" Danielle nodded. "His name is Eli. He's 8. Why didn't you tell him?" "I tried," Danielle said, "but he never returned the messages. Never called back. Then one day, I saw on the news that he died." Clara's throat tightened. "He never mentioned you." "Not once." Danielle smiled sadly. "That doesn't surprise me." "Why?" "Because we ended badly. I accused him of not being ready. He accused me of trapping him." Clara looked away. "But he loved music," Danielle whispered. "And Eli, he sings in the shower. Loud." Clara laughed softly, despite herself. They spoke for over an hour. When Clara stood to leave, Danielle hesitated. "I didn't send you the photos, but maybe it's good you saw them." "Why?" "Because secrets don't keep. They rot." Nicholas met Clara at the lake house that evening. She told him everything. About Eli, about Danielle, about the meeting. Nicholas listened without interrupting. Then, quietly, "What do you want to do?" Clara stared at the fireplace. "I don't know." "They're family," Nicholas said. She nodded. "But are we ready for more family?" He didn't answer, because some questions had no answers. Only time and courage. It took Clara 4 days to decide. 4 days of folding laundry in silence, of watching Lily and June play and wondering if they deserved to know. 4 days of Nicholas checking in gently, never pushing. For days of Caleb's voice in her memory, warm, joking, promising forever, and wondering what else he had left unsaid. Finally, on the fifth morning, Clara called Danielle. "I think we should meet again," she said. "And this time bring Eli." Nicholas offered to host a meeting at the lake house. Neutral ground. Quiet. Private. The drive up was different this time. Clara wasn't nervous for herself. She was nervous for her daughters and for a boy she hadn't met. Lily and June weren't told everything, only that they were meeting someone special. Clara packed snacks and coloring books, just in case. Nicholas had laid out lemonade, blankets, a board game none of them knew how to play. He looked calm, but Clara saw the way his fingers kept adjusting the edges of the napkins. At 10:17 a.m., Danielle's car pulled into the gravel driveway. Clara's breath caught when the passenger door opened. A boy stepped out, tall for his age, messy brown hair, a blue hoodie pulled over his head, and eyes at stop time. Caleb's eyes. Danielle approached first. She nodded at Clara, a little more relaxed than last time. "This is Eli." Eli glanced up, unsure. Clara crouched to his level, smiling gently. "Hi, Eli. I'm Clara." He nodded. "These are Lily and June. They're 6. They like messy crafts, cartoons, and being very loud." Lily waved enthusiastically. "Hi. Do you like bugs?" Eli blinked. Sometimes." June stepped forward. "I like stars better." Eli's lips curled into the tiniest smile. They ended up sitting on the porch, all 6 of them. 3 adults, 3 kids, a triangle of lives finally touching. Lily showed Eli how to draw butterflies using spirals. June handed him a juice box without asking. He took it. By the time Clara looked up at Nicholas, she realized she was holding her breath. He was watching the boy like he was a ghost and a miracle in one body. Danielle and Clara sat under the tree later, letting the children play with chalk on the driveway. "I didn't think this would ever happen," Danielle said. Clara nodded. "Me neither." They were quiet for a long time. Then Clara asked, "Does he know?" "Only that his dad was a musician, that he died before they could meet." "Will you tell him?" Danielle looked out at the 3 kids. "I think you just did." After lunch, Eli sat beside Nicholas on the dock. They hadn't spoken much, but Nicholas had brought something. He opened the case gently. Caleb's guitar. Eli stared. Was that his? Nicholas nodded. Eli reached out, hesitated, then strummed one string. It hummed into the open air, light and honest. "Do you want it?" Nicholas asked softly. Eli looked up. "Really?" Nicholas nodded again. "It was your dad's. It should be yours." Clara, watching from the house, pressed her hand over her mouth. Lily leaned against her. "Mommy, is Eli really our brother?" Clara looked down into her daughter's searching eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Cool," June said from the floor. "Now we have someone to blame for the cookie crumbs." That night, after everyone had gone home, Nicholas and Clara stood in the kitchen washing dishes by hand. "She has your backbone," Nicholas said to Clara, "and his honesty. She's stubborn. She's perfect." Clara dried a plate. "So, now we're 6. Nicholas smiled. "We always were. We just didn't know it." But that peaceful evening didn't last long. The next morning, Clara received a message from an unknown number. It read, "Family or not, the veil name doesn't belong to just anyone. Enjoy the spotlight while it lasts." She stared at the screen, then picked up her phone. "Nicholas," she said when he answered, "we have a problem." Clara stared at the message on her phone, her hands still damp from washing dishes. "Family or not, the veil name doesn't belong to just anyone. Enjoy the spotlight while it lasts." She didn't recognize the number. No signature. But the tone was clear. This was a warning. Nicholas arrived within the hour. He read the message once, then again, then placed the phone face down on the table. Clara watched him. Do you know who sent it? He hesitated. Yes. She waited. My brother. Round pushpin flashback. 36 years ago. A different veiled patriarch. A different empire. And two very different sons. Nicholas, quiet, brilliant, focused. Edmund Vale, loud, charming, and wild. The firstborn. The heir. Until he disappeared to Europe in his 20s chasing models and Monaco poker tables. Nicholas stayed, built, sacrificed, buried Caleb's mother, raised an empire on silence and regret. Years later, when Edmund returned, bankrupt and bitter, Nicholas refused to hand him a seat at the table. But he gave him a title, honorary family trust advisor, ceremonial, powerless. Until now, he's always hated me, Nicholas admitted. Clara raised an eyebrow. You're the one with the empire. He looked at her. That's why. Clara frowned. So now he's what? Threatening the kids. Nicholas's eyes were cold. He's not that brave, but he'll stir the board, the bloodline crowd, the legacy protectors. Clara's voice sharpened. They're 6 and 8. This isn't legacy. This is their life. Nicholas nodded. And I'll protect it. The next morning, Nicholas walked into a boardroom filled with tension. Edmund was already there. Silk scarf, bronze skin, whiskey at 10 a.m. Nicky, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Still trying to build your own Brady Bunch, I hear. Nicholas didn't respond. The room quieted. I've reviewed the restructuring proposals, Edmund continued. Seems you made quite a few emotional decisions lately. This isn't your concern, Nicholas said calmly. Edmund raised an eyebrow. Isn't it? When the family name is involved. When you're handing public influence to a woman who once scrubbed our marble floors. Gasps. Shifts in chairs. One woman actually dropped her pen. Nicholas stood slowly. You don't get to insult her. She doesn't belong. Neither did you, Nicholas snapped. Silence. Dead, icy silence. Later that day, Clara sat in the small employee lounge, her hands clenched around a mug of coffee she hadn't sipped. David Monroe entered. You okay? She forced a smile. Define okay. He's Saturday. I heard about the boardroom today. I didn't ask to be part of this circus, she said softly. No, David agreed. But you're holding your own better than most of them. That evening, Nicholas invited Clara and the children to his penthouse, a rare occurrence. But this wasn't dinner. This was strategy. I want a formalized guardianship, he told her. If anything happens to me, I want you and the children protected. Clara stared. You think Edmund would fight that? He's already working angles, Nicholas said. If I die, he takes control of the family trust. Unless I legally name successors and guardians now. And if you don't, he'll freeze the girls out. Eli, too. He'll erase them. Clara took a deep breath. Then do it, whatever you need to do. The next day, Edmund made his move. A press leak. Clara Jensen, the Cinderella climbing Vale's ladder. Former janitor turned Queen Mother Vale Empire. Photos of the girls. Of Eli, zoomed in from behind bushes. Stolen. Clara couldn't breathe. Nicholas was already on the phone with lawyers. By nightfall, Nicholas went on record. A rare public statement, broadcast live. Let me be clear. These children, Lily, June, and Eli, are my blood, my family, and I will not tolerate attacks on them, or their mother, or the memory of my son, Caleb. Legacy isn't about money. It's about what and who we choose to fight for. It was bold, it was raw, and it divided the world. The following day, Clara walked Lily and June into school. At the door, a teacher whispered, "Thank you." Another handed her a note that simply read, "You're doing better than you know." Clara smiled for the first time in days. But outside, Nicholas received a final message from Edmund. Asterisk, let's see if your little kingdom survives its conscience. Blood is one thing. Power is another. Asterisk. Nicholas deleted the message, then looked out the window at the city he built, and whispered to himself, then I'll burn the whole thing down, if it means saving them. Clara woke to silence. No notifications. No press calls. No emails demanding statements. It was a quiet morning, but it wasn't peace. It was the calm before the storm. At the Vale mansion, Nicholas stood by the window, looking out at the city he had spent his life building. His empire was strong, unyielding, but was built on a foundation of fear, pride, and broken relationships. For the first time in years, he was questioning it all. The press had subsided, but the damage was done. Edmund had successfully cast a shadow over Nicholas's decisions. People were questioning everything. The legitimacy of the children, the choices Nicholas had made, and his ability to lead without the old family structure. Yet, there was one thing Edmund had underestimated: Nicholas's commitment to his family, his blood. Clara stepped into the office, her eyes darkened by exhaustion. "We need to talk," she said. Nicholas turned, his face hardening. "I know," he replied, his voice low. "About what Edmund said." Clara interrupted. "No, about us." She could see the exhaustion in his eyes, but there was a fire burning beneath it. Nicholas folded his hands on the desk. "What about us?" "About how we move forward." Clara said, "This is bigger than just a name, bigger than just legacy. This is about real choices, about who we are now." Nicholas didn't answer immediately. He reached for the files on the desk, but his hand paused just before he grabbed them. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I thought I could control everything, but I see now that I can't. I thought I could protect them from the world, from the pressure, but I can't protect them from themselves." Clara sat down opposite him. "You can protect them from the worst of it, Nicholas, but you have to stop trying to control everything." His eyes flashed with frustration. "It's not control. It's survival. My family, my legacy, I've spent my entire life building this, and now it's all falling apart. Because of them." Clara softened. "Because of us." She leaned forward. "You think I'm just here for the ride? That I'm just playing the role of the wife or mother? You're wrong, Nicholas. I'm here because I chose to be here. I chose to be a part of this." The door opened suddenly. Lily and June stepped in, holding hands, their faces bright and innocent. "Mommy," June said, "can we go to the park today?" Clara smiled softly, wiping away a stray tear. She didn't know it had fallen. "Yes, baby. We'll go after dinner." Nicholas watched them, his heart heavy with emotion. As they left, Clara turned back to Nicholas. "I'm not asking you to give up everything," she said. "I'm asking you to choose. Choose who you are, not who you were. Choose your family, Nicholas, not your empire." He looked at her for a long moment, as if seeing her for the first time. "I don't know how to do that." "Then start by doing it with me." That evening, Nicholas called a family meeting. Clara, the girls, and even Edmund were present, sitting in the vast conference room at the Vale mansion. It was time for answers. Nicholas stood, his hands steady but his eyes uncertain. "I've been running this company for decades, but it's never felt like home. I've spent years trying to make it perfect, try to make it something worthy of a legacy. But it's not just mine to control anymore." Edmund leaned back, crossing his arms. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying it's time to give up the reins," Nicholas replied. "It's time to let go." Clara watched him closely. The weight of his words was heavy. "What do you mean, let go?" "I mean, I'm stepping down." Silence filled the room. "Stepping down?" Edmund scoffed. "From what? Everything you've built? You'll ruin us all." Nicholas didn't flinch. "I've already ruined what matters." He turned to Clara and the girls, his eyes softening. The empire isn't just about profit. It's about people. It's about family. And that's something I've neglected for far too long. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Nicholas's decision to step down as CEO shook Vail Financial to its core. Board meetings were tense. The stock prices fluctuated. There were protests, whispers of uncertainty, and pressure from every side. But Nicholas had made his choice. One quiet evening, Clara and Nicholas sat together, watching the girls play in the yard. "I don't know what happens next," Nicholas said, his voice quiet. "But I do know one thing. I won't let them grow up like I did." Clara smiled. "You're already changing, Nicholas. It's more than I ever imagined." He reached for her hand. "I'm not perfect, but I'm trying." And for the first time in a long time, Clara believed him. But as the days passed, the pressure didn't ease. Edmund wasn't done fighting, and neither was the world. Clara felt the weight of the future pressing down on her. The world was changing around them, and she wasn't sure if it was going to break them or build something new. But one thing was clear. They were no longer playing by the old rules. The game had changed, and they were all in. The boardroom was tense. It had been days since Nicholas made his public statement, his decision to step down as CEO of Vail Financial. The media had calmed down, but the storm in the boardroom hadn't even begun to subside. The executives, the shareholders, they were all restless. They didn't know what to expect next, and neither did Nicholas. Edmund Vail stood at the head of the long conference table, his arms crossed, a smirk plastered on his face. "So, Nicholas, you've decided to abdicate. I should be celebrating. But instead, I find myself questioning your sanity." Nicholas sat at the opposite end of the table, his hands folded. He was calm, but there was a hard edge to his voice. "You've always questioned my choices, Edmund, but this isn't your decision to make. I'm choosing to hand over the reins to the future." "You think this is about the future?" Edmund scoffed. "This is about weakness, about fear. You're letting a few bad headlines dictate your actions. And now you're throwing everything we built into chaos. I won't stand for it." "Then stand aside," Nicholas replied, his voice steely. "Because I'm not running anymore. I'm not making decisions based on fear. I'm making them based on what matters." Clara was in the hallway, just outside the boardroom, waiting for Nicholas to finish the meeting. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from David Monroe. "It's getting ugly in there. Nicholas needs backup. I'm serious." Clara took a deep breath. She had always known this day would come, but now that it was here, she didn't know what to do with herself. She was caught between the man she loved and the family she was still building. The weight of the decision pressed down on her chest. This was no longer about Nicholas's empire. This was about everything they had built together, about the girls, about their future, about the lives they would lead. Inside the boardroom, Nicholas's eyes were locked on Edmund's. "You don't get it, do you?" Edmund sneered. "You think you can just walk away and leave the family business to them? Your granddaughters? What kind of legacy is that?" Nicholas's voice hardened. "The legacy I'm leaving is about what I should have done all along. It's not about money or power. It's about who we are." Edmund's eyes flared with anger. "You're a fool." "I'm a father," Nicholas replied, "a grandfather, and I choose my family." Clara walked into the boardroom, her heels clicking on the polished floor. The room went silent as she stepped up beside Nicholas. She had never been in a board meeting like this before. She had always been an outsider, but now she was stepping in not just as a supporter, but as a part of this. "Edmund," Clara began, her voice calm but firm, "this isn't about you. This isn't about what you want. This is about what Nicholas is willing to fight for, and what I'm willing to stand beside." Edmund looked at her, eyes narrowing. "You've been living in a fantasy, Clara. This isn't your world." "It's my world now," she replied without hesitation, "and I'll fight for it. For Nicholas, for the girls. Nicholas turned to Clara, his expression softening. He reached for her hand and squeezed it tightly, a silent message of gratitude and trust. "We're not backing down, Edmund," Nicholas said, his voice resolute. Edmund's face twisted in rage. "You can't do this. You'll ruin everything. The trust, the board, the family legacy." Nicholas stood up, pushing his chair back with a force that echoed in the room. "I'm done building empires based on fear. I've spent my whole life doing that. It's time to build something else." The silence that followed was thick. Then a voice from the other side of the table spoke up, one of the younger executives, who had been silent up until this point. "I agree with Nicholas," she said. "The old ways aren't working, and we've all seen how the world is changing. It's time to adapt, to be more than just another corporate giant. We need to be human." The words hung in the air. Nicholas turned to face the young executive, his eyes narrowing. "You're right. It's time for change. But that means we all have to adapt, not just some of us." Edmund's face flushed with anger, but he couldn't deny it. The room was shifting. He was losing his hold. "You can't be serious," he muttered under his breath. "I'm dead serious," Nicholas said firmly. "You're out, Edmund. Effective immediately." Clara exhaled, feeling the weight of the moment lift slightly. Edmund's face went pale as he realized he had no more leverage. The board members were watching him, some with pity, some with disdain. His power was crumbling. "You can't do this to me." Edmund spat. "I built this family, this company. I deserve respect." Nicholas stood tall, unwavering. "Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn, and you lost it a long time ago." As Edmund stormed out of the room, the atmosphere in the boardroom shifted. Nicholas turned to the remaining executives. "We're moving forward, together, as a family, as a team. The Vale legacy isn't just about money. It's about who we are, and I'm not running from that anymore." Outside, as the sun began to set, Clara walked out of the building with Nicholas by her side. The city stretched out before them, endless and full of possibilities. "I can't believe it's over," Clara said, her voice a mix of relief and exhaustion. Nicholas wrapped his arm around her. "It's not over. It's just the beginning." They stood there for a moment, looking out at the city, before Nicholas spoke again. "I have a new legacy to build, a real one, with you, with the girls." Clara smiled up at him, her heart full. "Then let's build it." The weeks following Edmund's departure were not easy, but they were necessary. Nicholas spent days reorganizing Vale Financial, restructuring the board, and creating a new vision for the company, one that prioritized integrity, people, and real connections over power and profit. He didn't do it for the world. He did it for Clara, for Lily, for June, and for Eli, who still hadn't fully grasped his place in this new family. It wasn't just a company he was rebuilding. It was his life, his legacy, and this time he wasn't doing it alone. Clara was by his side every step of the way. She didn't just support him from behind the scenes anymore. She was part of the decision-making, part of the vision. Together, they implemented policies that ensured the family would never be at risk again. For the first time, Clara saw Nicholas building something for them, not for his reputation. He made sure that his children, both his biological grandchildren and those he had never known, were cared for in every way imaginable. The trust funds were set up, the houses, the future. It wasn't about the money. It was about giving them a chance at a future that Caleb would have wanted for them. Lily and June were thriving. They had been enrolled in a new school, one that Nicholas personally visited before accepting them. It was a place where they could be children, not heirs. A place where they could grow and develop without the constant media scrutiny that had once followed them. And Eli was finding his place in this family too. Slowly but surely. He wasn't just Nicholas's grandson. He was part of the fabric of their daily lives. They spent weekends at the lake house, fishing, building sandcastles, and listened to stories about Caleb that Nicholas began telling with a warmth he hadn't shown before. One evening, Nicholas and Clara sat together, watching the sunset from the porch of the lake house. The twins were inside, playing with Eli, who had just started asking about learning to play Caleb's guitar. "I never thought I'd find peace here," Clara said softly, her voice barely a whisper. Nicholas reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "It's not perfect, but it's real." Clara smiled. "It's everything we need." He nodded. "It's everything I've been fighting for." They sat in silence, watching as the last light of day dipped below the horizon. They had come so far. They had been through so much. But now they were finally here, together. The following month, Nicholas made a public statement about the future of Vail Financial. It was a turning point, a decision that would shape everything going forward. "I've spent my life building a legacy," he said in the press conference. But legacy isn't just about what you leave behind. It's about what you do in the present. It's about the people you choose to surround yourself with and the lives you change along the way. Clara stood beside him, her hand on his arm. She had never been this sure of anything in her life. This was her legacy now, not a corporation, not a name, but the lives they touched, the love they shared, and the future they were building. A few weeks later, Clara found herself standing outside the school where Lily and June now thrived. It was the end of the school year, and the twins were excitedly chatting about the upcoming summer vacation. She looked at the two of them, laughing as they told her about their new friends and the art projects they had finished. And then Eli, who had become inseparable from them, caught up with his sisters. He grinned up at Clara. "Can I take the guitar to the park today?" Clara smiled, her heart swelling. "Of course, Eli. You've earned it." Nicholas joined them, his hand on Eli's shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Eli," he said quietly. "You're part of this family now. For good." Eli beamed, a smile so similar to Caleb's that Clara felt a lump in her throat. The following summer was filled with more moments like that. Small, everyday moments that built something stronger than they could have imagined. They spent time together as a family, learning, laughing, growing. Nicholas and Clara knew that there would still be challenges ahead, but they also knew they were no longer alone. Nicholas kept his promise. He built a family, not just an empire. One evening, a year after everything changed, Nicholas and Clara stood in the living room, looking at the framed photographs hanging on the walls. Family photos, ones they had taken together, ones that told their story. The twins were sitting on the floor, playing with blocks. Eli was next to them, strumming Caleb's guitar, as Nicholas and Clara watched from the doorway. Clara turned to Nicholas. "We've done it, haven't we?" He nodded, his eyes soft. "We've built something real, something that matters." And as they watched the children play, laughing and teasing each other, Clara realized that it wasn't just the legacy of the Vail name that mattered. It was the love they had for each other, the life they had built together, and the family they had fought so hard to protect.